Belisarius, Book 1, The First Shall Be Last, by Paolo A. Belzoni, published by Arx Publishing, Merchantville, New Jersey. Historical note: at the beginning of the 6th century A.D., the mighty Roman Empire lay in tatters, its western provinces dismembered into a patchwork of new kingdoms ruled by barbarians. Britain had been abandoned by the Romans for almost 100 years. Gaul, conquered by Julius Caesar, is ruled by a Frankish king. Spain, which had produced the emperors Trajan and Theodosius the Great, is now the seat of the Visigoths. North Africa, birthplace of St. Augustine, groans under the tyranny of the Vandals. Even Italy and the eternal city of Rome herself are under the rule of the powerful Ostrogothic king, Theodoric. In Constantinople, the New Rome, the Eastern Roman Emperor Anastasius is beset by problems. New and dangerous barbarian hordes cross the frontier year upon year, ravaging Thrace and Illyricum. Cabades, the great king of Persia, demands tribute and threatens Roman Mesopotamia and Syria. Theological controversies spawn catastrophic military uprisings, and the great cities of the East, Constantinople, Antioch, and Alexandria, are torn by internal dissension and factional strife. To many sober observers, it seemed that the final fall and destruction of the Roman Empire, and perhaps the world, was at hand. Chapter 1. A.D. 507, Summer. 16th year of the reign of Anastasius, Emperor of the Romans, at Germania, in western Thrace. A pleasant scent of pine wafted in the midsummer air, as a small, dark-haired lad poked about beneath the hilltop conifers in search of cones. "This is the biggest one yet," he marveled audibly to himself, delighted with his latest find. At the age of 3, few things in life matter more than a good collection of pine cones. Dropping it into his basket, he immediately regretted the coating of sticky sap it left on his hands. Tears of frustration began welling up in his eyes, as his attempts to wipe off the residue only resulted in clumps of dirt and detritus getting stuck to it. Clearly, this was a crisis that only Mater could remedy. He was about to turn back toward the nearby farmhouse when he noticed something across the valley that he had never seen before. "My hands are all sticky, Mama," he cried, running to her. His mother, Anna, was busy scattering some feed for chickens. She turned toward him with a kindly smile, noticeably large with her third child. "Don't whine, Belisarius," she scolded softly. "Mama will clean you up." Placing the bucket of feed on the ground, she grabbed hold of his sleeve and took him to a wash basin already filled with water. "I saw a big black tree in the sky," he said, as Anna scrubbed his hands with a rag. "You did?" she replied, indulging in his childish prattle. "Did it have a big black wolf chasing a big black sheep around it?" "No, it was small, but then it got big." "Ah, I see," Anna said, rinsing out the rag. "You want to see it, Mama? I'll show you," the boy said. "Sure," she replied, drying his hands on her apron. "But my hands aren't clean yet," the boy protested, pointing to a tiny spot of sap that still remained on his right hand. "Let me see that," Anna replied. Licking her thumb, she applied the universal solvent to the sap and rubbed hard until it came off. Delighted with his clean hands, the lad began pulling his mother toward the grove of pine trees by her apron. "Have you ever seen a big black tree before, Mama?" he asked innocently. Before Anna could answer, she saw the ominous column of smoke which had now risen over the crest of the hill. Picking up her son, she raced to the top and confirmed her worst fears. A knot formed in her throat, and her hands began to tremble. "My husband is gone. I'm too big to run. Can't ride fast holding him." Her thoughts began to race. Thank God Demetria took the baby into town this morning. "Look, Mama, now there are 2, 3, 4 big black trees," her son counted, oblivious to her distress. "Theotokos, help us," she prayed, still trembling. and was immediately overwhelmed by a calm sense of purpose. Clutching her small son, she ran to the house as best she could. "Where are we going?" he piped, laughing at her rapid bouncing steps. "Be quiet now," she warned, once they were inside the house. "Bad men are coming." "Bad men?" he whimpered, finally sensing his mother's agitation. "Yes. Do you remember how we practiced our church voice, Belisarius?" she said, looking him straight in the eye. "Yes," he replied. "I want you to use it now. No talking except in your church voice, do you understand?" "Yes," the lad whispered very softly. "Good. Now wait right here on this spot." With that, Anna ran outside. She scattered the chickens, untied the cow, and set her loose with a slap. Running around to the goat pen, she took a length of rope, and using it like a whip, chased the goats out at a run. She then hastened out to the small stable which her husband had built, and did the same with the 2 horses. Returning to the house, she flung open the door and began casting the family's furniture out pell-mell, purposely smashing some dishes and pottery in the process. Finally, she took a lit ember from the hearth, ran out into the now empty stable, and threw it into a pile of hay. Not daring to watch the conflagration take hold, she retreated back to the house. "Mama?" Belisarius whined, tears running down his face. "Church voice," Anna scolded in a loud whisper. She grabbed a heavy clay jar filled with bronze coins in one hand, her son in the other, and hurried into the bedroom. Shoving aside a large cabinet, she removed some loose stones in the wall, and thrust her son, the jar of coins, and several other prized possessions into a small alcove behind the wall built for just such an emergency. She overturned her bedding and emptied the cabinet, strewing clothes and toiletries all about the room. She then entered the alcove and carefully replaced the stones. The tiny chamber had never been used, and was thick with dust, cobwebs, and creeping things. Slivers of light entered through the cracked mortar, and Anna positioned herself so that she could see the barest fraction of her bedroom when she pressed her face to the wall. Clutching her son to her bosom, she began to pray in a hushed voice. "Dear Lord, protect us, please, from the ungodly men who would destroy us. Dear God, protect my husband, your servant Quintus, who fights with the army of the East against the Persians. Bring him home to us safely, Lord Jesus. Protect the infant which stirs within me, and pity the youth and innocence of the son you gave me." Hours went by as Anna and her son cowered in the cramped alcove. Perhaps they have passed us by, she dared to hope. Fear overwhelmed her, however, and she did not stir until more time went by. The first serious thoughts of emerging from the alcove were quickly dashed when Anna heard the ominous sounds of loud, indistinct voices coming from outside the house. "Not a sound," she whispered to Belisarius softly but urgently. The boy complied, stifling his fearful sobs against his mother's side. Soon the voices were in the house, disputing loudly with one another. Anna pressed her face against the stone, hoping to catch a glimpse. She immediately saw 3 men in Hunnic dress. "Bulgars again," she thought to herself. "God help us." Anna knew that if discovered, the raiders would think nothing of torturing her to death to find the hiding places of the imagined family treasures. They would scarcely be satisfied with the meager hoard she possessed. The 3 men began a rough random search of the house, smashing every jar and pot. Finding nothing, they quickly became discouraged. It was clear that 2 of them wanted to move on to the next farm in search of better plunder, convinced that this one had already been picked clean. The one who remained began a much more methodical search of the house. As he moved the cabinet aside and examined the stones concealing the entrance to the alcove, Anna clutched her son tighter, whispering, "Shh," as softly as a summer breeze. "I have forgotten the dagger," she lamented to herself, realizing that if found, she was defenseless. Loud, urgent voices from outside, however, disturbed the remaining brigand's search. He ran out of the house and was gone. A few moments later, Anna heard the most beautiful thing she could imagine: the sound of strong men's voices speaking Latin.